you, Pastor. Like he was saying, well, it was actually, I remember him asking vividly. It was Monday night. It was storming. I had pulled up to the gym, and I was like, this number, they called, and I was like, oh, I've got to answer this because with the type of work that I do, I don't ever know who's calling or where I'm needed. So I answered it, and I said, this is Kerri. And he goes, Kerri, this is Pastor Reiner. How are you? And I said, I'm good. And he goes, well, Sunday's Mother's Day. And he goes, I was thinking, what about if you, shared your story during both services? And I was like, okay, between offering and you speaking, or at the end of service before we give something to, all the moms. He's like, no, in lieu of my preaching. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, no, there's no way that I'm going to get up here and talk in front of all these people. I'm like, he sees me do these commercials for Yates Astro, and I guess he thinks since I'm on TV that I'm a public speaker, but I don't have to talk in those commercials. I just, do what they tell me to do. But so he asked me if I would come and share my story, and I was like, I don't, growing up in church, I grew up in church my whole life, was in church every service, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday nights. If there was revival, that was Thursday, Friday. It was anytime the doors were open, my parents had us in church. And so I was like, a story, I don't really have a big testimony, I guess you could say. I didn't have some, dramatic way of coming to the Lord. I grew up in church, and that's what I knew. So I was like, I don't even know what I could speak about. I was afraid to get up here and talk. Thankfully, first service kind of helped to ease those nerves. But in 2 Timothy 1:7, it says, for God will never give you the spirit of fear, but the Holy Spirit, He gives you mighty power, love, and self-control. So there's times as Christians and just in life that we're going to be asked to do things that are scary. And I have to tell myself a lot of times, especially in the work that I do, sometimes I have to do things scared. But I have to put my faith and my trust in Jesus because I know that He's going to be there for me. So today is Mother's Day, and I do have the honor, thank you, Pastor, for letting me speak with y'all. I know that Mother's Day is not always a joyous day. I know there's a lot of us that are moms here. There's a lot of women here that may long to be moms. And you have that desire to be a mother, and you struggle with infertility. Maybe you're a mom that's lost a child, or you're a child that's lost a mother. Maybe you are a mother or a child that has a broken relationship. Wherever you find yourself today, remember that you are loved and cherished by our Heavenly Father. I'm going to read, if you were at our women's brunch about a week ago, there was a poem that was shared. And I wanted to share that with y'all today. And it's titled, What is a Mom? Moms who are alone, moms who cannot find a moment to be alone, moms who have no children but have a mom heart, mom who have so many children they do not know what to do, moms who are spiritual moms but have no biological connections to the ones they are mothering, moms who are moms to the motherless, foster moms, moms with husbands, ex-husbands, in-laws, and former in-laws, dads who are functioning as both mom and dad, moms with compliant children, moms with argumentative children, moms with babies, toddlers, teens, adult children, prodigal children, Christ-following children, married children, single children, even children who want to be but are not your children, new moms, old moms, in-between moms, birth moms, adoptive moms, moms who are waiting in anticipation for the positive pregnancy test, who have never given birth or adopted but have mothered anyway. Moms who have never saw their children live to birth, never held them in their arms. Moms with singles, twins, triplets, quads, and more. Moms with children who have special needs. Moms whose husbands have special needs. And moms who are sure after mothering that they have special needs. A mom can be anything that God has called her to be, any shape, any size, any age, but successful only when she avails herself of the Word of God and is deeply rooted in His principles. To all these women, happy Mother's Day. So when I was thinking of my story and trying to condense down my life story in a little bit, but that is a picture of my mom there. So I'll get to see her this Thursday. So she lives in Arkansas, and we're here in Georgia, so it makes it hard to get to be with her on this day. But I'm going to try to tell my story in a condensed version, so kind of a timeline. But there is a picture, it will be put up here shortly, but a picture of a girl, and her name is Anne, which I'm going to use different names, and I've changed names just to respect the privacy of those that are involved in my story. So this is a picture of Anne and her brother Gary. And Anne and Gary were both adopted. Anne was 6 years old, and Gary was 4 when they were adopted. And they both grew up in a really strict Catholic home, and their upbringing was not very good. And at the age of 16 and in her 10th grade year of high school, Anne found out that she was pregnant with an unplanned pregnancy. And so during her pregnancy, a few months following, finding out that she was pregnant, she had lost her father. He had passed away at the age of 45. And so when it came time for her to deliver in February of that next year, her mother took her out of state to deliver. So on February 15th, 1984, a 7-pound, 6-ounce baby girl was born in Little Rock, Arkansas. It says in Jeremiah 1:5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." That is the picture of my parents. And that's a moment in my story that the trajectory of my life was changed forever. I always knew growing up that I had been adopted. It was not a secret. It wasn't something that there was any shame about. It was something I just always knew. I didn't know any different. My parents were very open with that. Now, I did not have an open adoption, meaning I did not know anything about my biological family, my mother, father, siblings, anything like that. I did not know anything about that. And just with the closed adoption, I had no information. My parents didn't either. So, but a few years after I was born, my parents adopted once again, and I became a big sister. And my sister Beth was born on February 18th in 1988. And so I grew up and was a big sister and, fought like most siblings do. But, throughout our childhood, we moved one time in our childhood. And so we lived in the Little Rock area in Arkansas, but eventually moved. My parents moved us to a town called Cabot. Actually moved there for better schools and just better opportunity for our family. And in my junior high school years, my parents started a business, and we owned a trophy shop, and I had the privilege and I guess honor of just being able to work in a family business, and especially as I started having children, I was able to bring them with me to work. So it was such a good thing for me. In 2000, while I was in high school, my dad, which is pictured there, suffered a major heart attack. Actually 5 bypasses. 90% of his heart was not even functioning, and he was stubborn enough to drive himself to the hospital, like some people, and had his bypass surgery and everything, and was back on the mend, and then on into becoming a senior in high school. That is where I met my now husband Robert. And we dated for about 2 years before we got engaged, and then were married in March of 2005. And so there's our picture there. So I had talked to Robert prior to getting married, talking about, a family and kids. And I was like, I want kids. And I was like, but I also want to adopt. Like, just remember that. Because that's something that's so dear to me, because that is a part of my story. And so shortly after we had got married in 2005, it was in December of that year, I had to go in for surgery because I had endometriosis. I'd had several procedures done prior to that in my high school years, but usually those are like outpatient surgeries, so, you don't really wake up in a full hospital room and everything. And I'm like, what is going on? And they're like, well, we found a tumor on your left ovary. And so automatic thoughts of just, okay, I'm never going to be able to have children. Like, this is, maybe adoption's the only way we're going to be able to grow our family. And the desire to have children, I had just a feeling that it was, not going to happen. And those thoughts came in. But shortly after that procedure and that, time of healing, we ended up getting pregnant with our first son, Lincoln. So I'll be able to introduce you to my family, because I'm not usually, first service, I'm not ever at first service because there are a bunch of us, and it's hard to get kids ready on Sunday mornings. So we are good to make it for connections class and second service. But this is our oldest, Lincoln. And he goes, I think it was last night, he goes, Mom, do you think you're going to cry up there? I said, yes, I'm going to cry up here. But he goes, I think you're going to do a good job. So, but he is our firstborn, and he is obviously my firstborn son. And there's just something about a mama and her firstborn son. I don't have the words to fully, explain that. But if you're a mom and your, firstborn was a son, then you can understand. But he loves lacrosse, which if you've never watched the sport, it is intense. And he's played for over 3 years now, and I still don't know much about it. But he's into cars, all things cars, sports cars, fast cars, But, and then he's also like at this stage of life where he's too cool to hang out with his dad and I. So he'll be a senior this year, and we'll be 18, and I'm not doing good with that. And then in June of 2009, we gave birth. I gave birth to our second son, Anderson. And Anderson will be starting high school this year. And I can't believe it. But he is my biggest help. He is the best big brother, and he helps with his younger siblings so much. So I don't even know what I would do without him. But he is following in his dad's footsteps. He is a drummer too. Yeah. Everybody's always like drumming and tapping, and I'm surprised like Mama T does not fill him on the pew during worship, because he's just like constantly drumming. But that is Anderson. And over the years of our marriage, in the birth of Lincoln and Anderson, Robert and I served as youth pastors at a church in Arkansas, Change Point Church. And so the boys grew up, being in church and learning to serve and just being in church. That's what they've known. Just how I was raised, that is what they know. But unfortunately, like most of our stories, there's loss in stories. Our stories aren't always happy, and there's some valleys that we walk through. We're not always on the mountaintop. And so in March 6th of 2013, I lost my dad. He had a massive heart attack in his sleep, and my mom had found him that morning when she woke up to get everyone ready for school. And so it has been 11 years. And I talked about the trophy store that we did together, and I worked with him until I turned 29, because he passed away, when I turned 29. So I worked with him through 9th grade. My parents even lived 2 doors up from us, so I was super close with my dad. After losing him, Robert and I had talked about growing our family again and, trying. And I figured with the stress and the loss of my dad, because that took a big toll on me, physically that it would probably take some time, but we did get pregnant, and we became pregnant with twins. And a lot of people see all our kids come in, and a lot of people don't even know that they're twins, but there's Sawyer and Sydney, and they are twins. And Sawyer is 1 minute older, and he will never let Sydney live that down. So he is the older brother by 1 minute. Sawyer is smarter than our entire family. He can remember things about anything. I mean, especially like sports statistics. The kid loves every sport, every team, you name it, he knows it. Sydney is strong-willed and is very tough, having 4 brothers. When I was pregnant with the twins and knew that, we knew Sawyer was a boy. We had to wait for a different ultrasound to just verify the sex of baby B. And I had just prayed during this pregnancy with the twins. I was like, God, like, I desire a daughter. Being adopted, not knowing who my birth mother is, who my birth mother looks like, if I look like her, I was like, God, I want a daughter that I can look at her and see my reflection, and I can see a part of me. So she looks like her mama, but she acts like her daddy. So after the twins were born, it was probably in November, December of that year. They were born in 2004, but we were kind of wanting to step out in faith and to move and to do something different, having lost my dad and just trying to help my mom through that grieving. But we were wanting something more opportunity. And so we ended up moving to Lexington, Kentucky in 2014, and lived there for about 2.5 years. And we got involved in ministry there at the church there, and did children's ministry. And that was very short-lived. I love kids. It was not the easiest thing for Robert. So we're good in youth ministry. The older children are good. But then eventually we felt called back home in April of 2017, and stayed there for a little bit, and then made our transition and our way over here to Savannah, Georgia. My husband's in pest control, and so he accepted a job with economics, but now it's Yates. They combined the companies, so he works with Yates Astro, but that's what brought us here. And we have called Maranatha Family Church home since, I would say, probably the end of January last year. So we've been here almost about 1.5 years. But so this is our church home, and we have the privilege, like Pastor said, to be the youth pastors for Synergy Student Ministries. So what an honor and privilege to pour into the lives of the students here. When we moved here, we moved here, in 2018, which we got here that January, I think it snowed here, and everyone's like, oh, it doesn't snow here much, but I'm like, everywhere we moved, it was always snow followed us, and I'm like, it's not supposed to snow in Savannah, but it did, and I was trying to get the kids enrolled in school, and everything was closed. I was like, please, open the schools so I can get them in school, but we made the Rankin area home and got the kids situated into school. And then in, I would say probably December of 2019, God was really just putting it on our hearts to start the adoption process. And so we prayed about it, and we looked at different avenues. There's so many ways that you can go about adoption these days. And so we officially started the process in January of 2020. And then a few months later, COVID hit and kind of put a damper on things, and just us being able to get things completed quicker, it just took a lot longer. So you have to do home studies, you have to, raise funds and all these things, and just the roller coaster of that journey, and the process to opening your home into being a waiting family. And so we went through heartache in our adoption journey, a process that you would think, oh, it happened pretty quickly. There's a lot of children that need homes. And so we had matched with an expectant mother, but then a few months later, she ended up changing her mind. And we were devastated because we were thinking we were going to bring this little boy into our home, and that was not what God saw fit. And I had to remind myself that in this, at the adoption process, that God just wasn't looking at the desires of my heart or Robert's heart. He was looking at that little boy and that expectant mom, and knowing that that little boy needed to be placed in the home that he needed to be placed in. If that wasn't our home, then that's what God's plan was for him. So we went through that disruption and continued on our journey, continued showing our profile books to different expectant mothers. Literally showed our book like over 160 times to be told, no, like they didn't select you, or, not this time. And eventually it kind of got discouraging, like where I didn't even open my emails to look, because I was just like, it's never going to happen. But on Christmas Day of 2021, I got a call, that little boy had been born on Christmas Eve. And he was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and so we had to get plane tickets. And we took the first flight out on that Sunday morning because Christmas Eve, it was on a Friday. We got the call on Saturday, and we got to Phoenix on Sunday afternoon. And so that picture there on the left is the first time that I got to hold him. And then that's him now, and he plays the drums too. He comes in here after every second service. Anderson will go get him. He comes in that drum booth, and he just plays till his little heart's content. But he is just, his personality, if you've ever met him, he's always smiling. And so there's this quote by Jody Landers. It says, "A child born to another woman calls me mom. The depth of that tragedy and the magnitude of that privilege are not lost on me." Robert and I were chosen. His first mom picked us to raise him. And what an honor to be his mom. Adoption is love. Adoption is lost. Adoption is complex. Adoption is trauma. Adoption is brokenness. Adoption is restoration. Adoption is healing. Adoption is beautiful. Adoption is a redemptive response to tragedy that happens in a broken world. And so was that picture of Silas. Like, he is like, his smile will light up any room. He is like, Robert sent me that picture. It was during like COVID regulations, so we both couldn't be in the NICU at the same time. So I would be with the other kids, and he sent that picture, and the kid has not stopped smiling since. He's always happy, and we are blessed with an open adoption with his first family, and just so grateful to get to love on Mama A and be a part of her life, and just the gratitude that I have to her for seeing me fit to raise her son. And so this was from a trip last October. My mom went with me, and we went and spent the week with her. And she was able to see Silas for the first time since he was born. So it had been almost 2 years since she had seen him in person. But open adoption has there's complexities that surround that. But I'm thankful that he has that. That was something that I wanted him to have that I never had. And so I'm going to read Psalms 127, 3-5. It says, "Children are a heritage from the Lord. offspring a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They will not be put to shame when they contend with their opponent in court. And so that is my family. And I just see the goodness of God and his faithfulness. That the decision that my birth mother made, this is the ripple effect. My family. So I have some points to share with you. The enemy, he wants to silence your story. He wants you to think that you don't have a story to tell, but there is someone out there that needs to hear your story. And you don't need to be afraid to share your story. So it says in John 10:10, it says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. He goes, but I have come that you may have life and have it to the fullest. Jesus is our source of strength. It says, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Know that you have a story worth sharing. Your story matters. It matters to God, and it is needed by others. Others in the body of Christ need to hear your story. The brokenness in our lives create a story of God's power. God has entrusted us with it to help others overcome and bring him honor and praise. In Psalm 73:28, it says, but as for me, how good is it to be near God? I have made the sovereign Lord my shelter, and I will tell everyone of the wonderful things you do. Your story will become a testimony of who Jesus is. It says in Ephesians 3:20, it says in Revelations 12:11, it says that they triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Your testimony matters. And lastly, God is still writing your story. Like Pastor Donnie said earlier, there may be brokenness. You may be in sin up to your eyeballs. There's redemption. And so it doesn't matter how it may look, how it may feel. God is still writing your story, and to stand firm and hold on to faith, believe and trust the author of your story. In Ephesians 3:20, it says, now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we could ask or think, according to the power at work within us. God can use your story for the good. In Romans 8:28, it says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and have been called according to his purpose. I had talked earlier about how my adoption was a closed adoption. And over the last, I'd probably say almost year and a half, I've really tried to have the desire more to find my birth family, to find where I came from, who I look like. And especially in the line of work, I know I didn't say this in first service, but I work for an adoption agency now, and I get to serve expectant moms and birth mothers. So it's a very rewarding job to walk alongside women that are making an adoption plan. And then I also work for a national nonprofit called Abiding Love Charities that works with all members of the adoption triad. And so I specifically work within Tier 2, which is for adoptive parents, and then also Tier 3 for adoptees. And so God is, this is kind of preparing me, but God's opened up doors. I'll be going to D.C. in June, and then I'll be talking for in Florida at the National Adoption Conference there, and we'll be speaking on a panel. So God is just opening doors and using my story, and I want it to ultimately bring God glory for that. So But this picture that's up there, Robert back in December had bought me a DNA test for Christmas. And I got that thing, Christmas Day I got it out, took the test, I did everything for it and put it in the mail. And in February, got my results and had some matches with a potential aunt, potential half-sibling. And then I was I needed more information. And so I was I found out that you could request your original birth certificate. And so I have a birth certificate with a name that was given to me after birth by my parents. But I was I want to see if my birth mother's name is on the birth certificate. And so sure enough, I requested that and got my birth certificate. And with the help of search angels in the adoption profession, they were able to connect me to my birth mother. And this is the picture that's up there is part of my birth family on my mom's side, my birth mom's side. And so we actually connected last Saturday through email, and then we are now all Facebook friends and have started that relationship of reunification and just building that relationship and just knowing that God is working everything out. He sees the desires of my heart, and he's helping me put those pieces together. And I have such great support from my mom in finding out all this information, and she has just encouraged me and been with me during all of this. But I'm going to close with this. God will always see it. He'll always see to it that his will is accomplished, regardless of the decisions that we make. If we step off the path, God will accomplish his will. But God's specific will for my individual life could only be accomplished through the journey and the experience of adoption. That is why I'm here today. My mother chose life, and I'm here. So just as God created the ripples in the water for Moses, and he designed Moses to be found by Pharaoh's daughter, his life experiences placed him in the position to accomplish God's will for his life. Know that you are wonderfully made and uniquely created by a loving God, and that God has ordered your steps to accomplish his individualized plan for you. So God, he knew me. He knew me long before I was in Anne's womb. Before she became pregnant, God knew me. Before she placed me for adoption, God knew me. Before my mom and dad, after waiting over 10 years to become parents, and they became my parents, God knew. And God saw and allowed all that I have experienced, all of the roller coaster ride of life, all of that experience in life to bring me to this point, continuing the ripples in my family and all those that I know and love. So just like I had said earlier, the ripples that pushed Moses into the arms of Pharaoh's daughter, the ripples of a decision made when you were born, set you into the life God had specifically designed for you. As God uses you for his kingdom, the ripples from your life will extend on into eternity.